Hey, welcome to my new series on ear training. In these videos, I'm going to explain what ear training is and how to start developing it. And then later on, of course, we'll go into more detail. So this is just an introduction to ear training just to get you started and so you understand exactly what it is. Ear training is the skill of being able to identify what you hear when you're listening to music. For example, if I play this note and then this note, you can hear they're the same basic sound, but one's low and one's high. So we have a term for that. Many of you probably already know that, and that is an octave. So by knowing what to call it, you have a point of reference and you know that sound, no matter what note it is an octave sound. Or if it's played together, kind of like a Wes Montgomery type of thing, you can hear that octave sound. So being able to identify it by ear is the whole point of ear training. Another example would be if I played a chord like this, and then I played a chord like this. You can tell each one has a different sound to them. And being able to name those sounds is what's important. And what we have, of course, isn't just that that's a C major chord, but it's a major sounding chord. The sound of that is major, whereas the sound of the other one is minor. And as we go through more things, you'll find out why that is and what to listen for. So by understanding ear training, you're also learning music theory at the same time because you're learning the terminology that musicians use to refer to all these different sounds and ideas. So there are a lot of methods that you can use to learn ear training or to how to train your ear. So I find learning how to identify different intervals a great place to start. Now, luckily, there are apps that can help you do that. And I'm, of course, going to have a lot of videos where I test your ear and you tell me what the sound is that I'm playing. That'll come in the future. So the first thing you want to do is understand all the basics, the intervals, the different chord sounds, the tonalities, the timbre, and, of course, the tones. And the tones, of course, just mean, are you using a flanger pedal? Are you using a chorus pedal? And over time, you can tell. You understand the differences and can hear those subtleties. Another example, of course, are chords. You'll learn major, minor, dominant seventh, suspended chords, what they sound like, and their inversion. So what they sound like when they're revoiced or mixed up in some way. Tonalities help you figure out keys, modes, the scales that are being used in the song or the piece of music. And of course, timbre is simply being able to identify different instruments that are being used. So as a guitar player, it's obvious when you have an acoustic guitar versus an electric guitar, right? But you want to go even further than that. Do they have single coil pickups? Do they have humbuckers? Are they using P90s? What kind of amp are they using? And there's a lot of variations out there, but you can kind of get a sense of what it might be just by listening to those sounds and getting used to them. So another thing that you need in order to be able to start into ear training is a point of reference. And I think this is really important because if you have a strong point of reference, then you can attach it to what you already know, which is how you learn anything, right? So let's say, for example, we're using that octave. All right, so you need a song that you know has that sound in it that you can refer to. Now, I've heard some teachers say you don't want to do that. You just want to learn the name of the sound so it doesn't take an extra second to process. In my experience, I find having a sound that I can refer to besides the name of the interval is extremely helpful. For example, with that octave, that's the song Let It Snow. It comes to mind because that first interval is an octave. So it helps me remember what an octave sounds like. So when I hear it in a different context, I'm like, oh, that's the Let It Snow interval, and there's nothing wrong with calling it that because it's an octave. You could tell someone else it's an octave, but for you, you've got a way of remembering the sound. You'll also need a method for practicing ear training. So one way is just to sit down, play the intervals over and over again, get that sound in your ear. Another great way is to be able to test those sounds. And so I'll have videos on that. And of course, there are apps that can help test those sounds as well and help train your ear. And hopefully you use both to do that. And that's really at the heart of it because you'll start with intervals, you'll listen to chord progressions, you'll listen to chord qualities, different modes, and all this stuff that we're talking about here today. So in our next video, I'm going to start in with the first two intervals that we'll be learning to listen to. One of them, of course, is the octave. The other one is unison, which is even easier than an octave. And then we're going to build from there. So make sure you come back for the next lesson. Until then, I'm going to have additional ear training content up on the Patreon soon. So definitely check that out as well. It's the Missing Method Patreon. And I encourage you to check out themissingmethod.com, where I have a bunch of guitar books that can help you become a better guitar player. So I will see you for the next ear training video.